losing your job or dealing with a pandemic, or we go through so many difficult things. So they said, could you put together a book with practical tips and tools?
That's made me feel really emotional. That's so nice. Such amazing words.
Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. I really hope you enjoy the second part of my interview with Swami Purnachaitanya.
If somebody like me, or somebody was interested in already kind of lived a similar life I do, because I know it's very similar, but what are the main differences really between Hinduism, Buddhism, and Vedism, can I say? Vedic tradition?
Yeah. Personally, for me, I like to use that term because for me, it is more appropriate, or a little more maybe authentic than a term like Hinduism, for example. Actually, if you see the Vedas, the ancient scriptures that we find in India, and the tradition that comes from there is actually not just one. It is, you can, they used to call it Sanatana Dharma also. It is this whole bundle of philosophies. Like even the Vedas themselves is a compilation of the wisdom of many sages that have for centuries meditated and shared that wisdom in different places with different people. So it's not like where you have a Bible or something where there is one author or one main person, you can say. Of course, there also were different disciples and all that. But and if you see, so the word Hinduism actually came much later, when people from the West came and they saw that, okay, there is this whole country on that part of the Sindhu River, and they were called Sindhus, you can say, and that later became Hindus etymologically. And then they said, okay, so that whole area, those people are Hindus. And then what they practice didn't make sense, because on one hand, you see someone doing something, and the other hand, they do the exact opposite, but they go to the same temple and they're perfectly fine with each other. So they clubbed everything together and said, okay, this is Hinduism. But it's a vast, you can say, bouquet of traditions that do share like common values, a common understanding, a mutual respect. Like I said, you can have people worshiping 5 different forms of that one divinity, and those forms may be totally opposite, and they go to the same temple happily. While I've noticed in some places you may have Protestants and you have Baptists, and you have like this, like other school of Christianity, and they don't go to the same church. So there people are like very chilled out. And if you see like Buddhism, for example, like the Buddha, he was a Hindu. He was not a Buddhist. So he was brought up in this Vedic culture. He studied the Upanishads, the different scriptures, and in that way, his teachings was actually not really separate. It was like one more, you can say, interpretation of those teachings, where, and this is been a practice, and it's never been shunned in this ancient tradition, that again and again it gets reinterpreted by masters, by saints and sages, to apply to our life, because the world changes, society changes. So certain things have to be revisited, reevaluated, and some things in the way get lost or go to the background. So he was again one of those enlightened masters who said, listen, we have to come back to the essence. You got too much stuck in the rituals, too much stuck in the concepts. We have to get back to the experience. And that is so beautiful about Buddhism, because it's all about experiencing. And that way, for me, it's not so different, not really different. Of course, later we say, okay, it's a separate religion, fine. But if you see even the teachings, many of the concepts, it's very much part of, you can say, the Indian traditions. And in that way, even like what we teach in our programs, for example, it's not confined to any religion. Like if you say even some yoga techniques, yes, it was maybe conceived by the sages there in India, but it's relevant for everybody. And bending your knee in a certain way is good for you. It's not going to make you go to hell. It will not change your religion. Or same way, if someone says Om, they don't convert, suddenly. Just like when I say Amen or when I say Shalom, it doesn't change my religion. So thank God nowadays people have woken up to that. I know a few decades back still there was a lot of, concepts, a lot of, preconceived notions.
Sorry to interrupt you, Swami, but there's this kind of trend, I guess, in a way, of being PC, and now apparently in some, yoga classes, or in some kind of meditations, they refuse to say things like namaste, just in case it's kind of implying that those people are of the, the Indian traditional faith.
Yeah.
I think it's stupid, to be honest. I think that, just saying a word like amen or shalom, or, it's a word. They use it wrong anyway.
Yeah, so what I always personally feel is that, and you can't say that because to everybody, because we need to be considerate and respectful, which I want to be. But then, of course, if you honestly ask me that if saying a word like that, or even like me going, like I love to go to Buddhist temples and to be part of the prayer. I love going to a church when there's a beautiful sermon going on. I love some of these the prayers also in the Muslim tradition. If you just listen to that, like it sounds very beautiful.
Yeah.
So for me personally, I love to be part of that because it's something beautiful. And I don't feel that my faith is so shaky that just entering a place of worship or saying a prayer in a different language changes or shakes my faith. But then, yeah, like you said, it is a bit of the medieval style, no, where you say, oh, it's you go to hell, or that's bad, or when if you see nowadays we have accepted food from all over the world, music from all over the world, clothes from all over the world. Nobody says, okay, if you watch a movie from Iran, it's going to affect your religion, or if you're going eat in an Italian place, it's going to affect your religion, because come on. So if something is good, including wisdom, from anywhere in the world, we should take it. That is what I feel. That is true wisdom.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of changing the changing face of society and the changing kind of times that we live in. Obviously now we're, more accepting of others. We're not as racist as we used to be, fortunately. Only as early back as 1970s, the UK was well, it still is in places racist, but and there are, churches opening up everywhere that kind of support LGBT communities, like, they have in London. This mosque where you can go, if you're of the LGBT community, for example, and do iftar together, and that kind of thing wouldn't happen in Istanbul, for example, or in many of the other Eastern cities and places. But attitudes are changing, and I just wondered what your not your art of living self, because that would be rude of me to ask you to speak on behalf of a whole organization. But what do you personally believe about that message, the inclusivity of including everybody, including the gay community,
I think it's very important, because in the end, if you see, if we want to be peaceful, if we want to be comfortable, if as a society we want to prosper, we have to come from that space of belongingness, and whether it is belief, religion, or this kind of preference, where you say when it comes to someone's personal views, lifestyle, and their disposition. Like if you say, yes, I feel, just because someone feels attracted to the same sex, or looks at himself in a different way, personally I feel like, one, who are we to judge? And two, why should that make that person any less, if they are not harming anybody, be it themselves or someone else? If it comes from a space of inclusiveness and respect, there's nothing wrong with that. And I think it's beautiful to see that that many of these concepts, like you said, are changing. Like I recently conducted a meditation retreat in India, in Pune, in Maharashtra, where some of the participants were actually the people who started the Mumbai Pride movement, and have been doing for so many years, and it has grown. And they've actually started, they are from the LGBT community, and they've started an NGO, like a forum, where they want to bring more awareness to people, but and this I really admire, also from the religious point of view. So one of them, who is like the founder, is a young guy doing a lot of work. And what he did, he actually took, I think it was a few years even, where he was studying all these different scriptures, whatever he could get his hands on, to see that, okay, what is really written there? Because there are so many misconceptions, and then he realized that there is nothing against these things in those scriptures. Rather, he found some references that you can say that this open-mindedness that we talk about now, in ancient days was already there. Yeah, okay, maybe there was a time where some of these things declined or went to the background. Like same way, if you see the respect and the place of women in ancient India was very high, more than even now today, you know.
Wow.
So now we talk about equality. There it was like women were really respected and not denied, for example, knowledge of these Vedic scriptures or participation in some of these rituals. That all came in between. So the reasons for that may be various, but so what they did is they went into all these things, and now this group of people is creating a lot of awareness and changing that stigma or these misconceptions that people have by educating them and being very open, but at the same time very respectful, but also very well educated, where they say, listen, I've gone through these scriptures, this is what it actually says, you know. And I think that's the beauty in today's world, that there is a platform for that, no? That even though in some parts of the world, of course, still it's not the same everywhere, but you see that more and more, once when done in the right manner, people are open. They say, okay, we are ready to listen. No, what do you have to say? We are, and I think that's a sign of evolution. That is going in the right direction. Yeah.
Yeah.
And personally, I have very good friends who themselves may be either gay and they're wonderful people, you know. So, and I think that's important for people also to get that kind of exposure, no? Because it's like if you have one person in your classroom when you grow up, no, as a child, who is a Jew or who is a Muslim or a Hindu or a Buddhist or anything, you know, that one person is enough. Then rest of your life you will not be so biased. Then when people say, oh, all Buddhists are idiots, or all Muslims are bad, or all Christians are, you know, crazy, then you will always say, no, you can't generalize. Because you know that one guy, he was a lovely guy, you know, we used to play together in the park every day.
Yeah.
So, and that is why I think that exposure is very important. You know? People need to need to mix and mingle, get to know a little bit from different traditions, different lifestyles, different,
Definitely. Yeah. So speaking of different kind of traditions and different lifestyles, you're wearing robes, and I'm interested to know how. I mean, I can imagine when you first started to adopt that kind of, you know, wearing those types of clothes when you first went to India probably and stayed all those years. But when you go to like places like Amsterdam or London in the winter, like what do you wear? Do you wear those? And do people obviously stare at you because it's different?
yeah. So the thing is, see, if I'm inside the house, I'm doing my exercise, then I'm not wearing, the dhoti, what is it, the traditional Indian.
What's it called?
It's called a dhoti. It's like a cloth. You wrap it around. Looks a little bit like a skirt, I guess, but it's like a cloth, and then on top you wear a shirt, and then sometimes like a shawl like this, or an upper shawl kind of thing. This is actually the traditional dress in South India, especially. So there you will see so many people wear it, especially if you go to the villages.
Yeah.
But it's also the traditional dress of, you can say, of the Swamis.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then it can be, in that case, it's either white or it's like the orange color, the reddish orange, the saffron color. So yeah, when I travel, of course, like this is my official dress. If I'm doing some exercise, working out, then I wear track pants and a t-shirt because that's purely practical. But yeah, the thing is, for me personally, of course, some people may look or stare or find it a little strange. But in India, the same thing happens, because seeing me coming from the West wearing these things, for them also looks odd. I mean, not for all people, but it's definitely unusual. So I got a lot of practice in India with people looking at me, and there they may look even more bluntly. In Europe, at least, people may feel a little shy to look at you. But in India, people will just look at you like this, and they don't feel anything wrong with that, So once you go through that, then it's no problem. You can go anywhere.
Yeah, no, I had a very similar experience in Turkey. People just stare. They're really curious people, and they don't mind kind of being caught staring, but really staring.
Yeah. And for us, it is a little unusual, but
yeah. I mean, you get used to it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I first started experiencing that, I was kind of a bit defensive. I was wondering, why is everyone looking at me like this? But no, you get used to it. But just before we move on to the next question, what's the difference between the two colors? Any difference at all or not?
It depends. Like there is different symbolism given to both. The saffron color is connected also to the fire. So they say that once you, because your old life is over, that's also why you receive a new name. So it represents that fire of knowledge, the fire of renunciation, and with that comes a sense of purity also. You know? So it is connected to that. At the same time, white color is also connected to purity, and simplicity, and also both of them. And so it depends. Like certain traditions, they will wear only the saffron color. Some it's white. Like for us, because our master wears white, so we also wear white. No? Like we like to be like him.
Yeah, I've actually been watching his live meditations for the last few weeks, and I kind of wake up in the morning now really excited, even before the time that they start. And I was waiting this morning for about an hour before it started because I woke up too early. But it's beautiful. But I don't think they're live. I think they're pre-recorded, maybe.
No, they're very much live.
They're live. Yeah,
yes,
it's amazing.
And we're fortunate that he's doing it twice a day. You know, I have millions of people across the world get to benefit.
One about now, actually, isn't it? What this time?
Yeah, it's going on now, but I'm gonna watch it after we finish.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Okay, so did you say it was called a dhoti, by the way?
Dhoti.
Okay. Sorry, I just made a note.
I mean, it's one of the names. They call it dhoti, or sometimes they call it lungi. It depends on the place also where you go.
Yeah.
But dhoti, dhoti.
Yeah. So I can spell it right as well. So my next question really is, you mentioned that you kind of you've given yourself a new name. You've adopted. Well, you haven't adopted a new way of life, but you're living your way of life that you've chosen to live. But the question really is about all the great things that you and everybody else is doing. For example, we talked about opening schools where there's no school in some districts in India and stuff. You're currently in South Africa doing your good work and spreading the message and things, helping people get food if they don't have it. But I wanted to ask you what your life's work looked like, or maybe tell me about the things that you'd hoped to have achieved that you haven't already achieved so far, except writing books, because we'll talk about that later.
So personally, on one hand, like I said, yes, I'm totally where I feel I want to be or should be, because for me, it is not just about serving also, but it's also that connection with the master. So to be able to do my master's work, to be a part of that vision, which creating a violence-free, stress-free society and doing good work, that of course is very fulfilling. At the same time, it's a question that I keep asking myself, because the answer changes as per the place and the time. Like a few years back, I was working in the northeastern part of India. So there were very specific challenges and problems for the people there, or that we would work towards. And now I'm in Africa, where the situation again is different. So for me, it is a combination of knowing what I have to do and reassessing what needs to be done.
Yeah.
And that differs per place and per time. Even here in South Africa, when I was here 1 year back, 1.5 years back, my focus was different. Now my focus is different. We have a lockdown all over. There are different problems and then different situations. And I guess when I look back at my life later on, whenever the time is that I'm supposed to go, I wonder, but even now, if you say, okay, tomorrow is your last day, I would be able to go to bed with a sense of fulfillment. I don't feel that there is, that I've really denied myself something that I really wanted to do or should have done. Of course, the work never ends. There is always more to be done. But knowing that, okay, I did my best and I've done something good, and at least to whoever I was able to make a difference, that much I was able to do, gives a great sense of satisfaction and fulfillment.
Yeah, amazing. So you mentioned the lockdown, and you've been locked down, I think, for 2 months in the same apartment, right?
Yeah, it's been a little more than 2 months now.
Yeah.
2.5.
What are you looking forward to doing when you get out of lockdown the most? Or what do you miss the most about being out and kind of socializing and stuff?
Honestly, definitely the one thing that I really miss is spending time in the nature. Uh, Normally, in between, at least, no, here and there, you have a chance to go for a walk, or you have traveling, or you go, no, one day, go a little bit of sightseeing, or. But now, because it's been 2.5 months in the same apartment, I mean, I have no issue with the couches and the walls and all that, but just being with the trees, the water, the wind, yeah, I
Yeah.
miss that a little. So that is the first thing I would do: spend some time in the nature.
Nice. Cool. So you're not actually allowed to go outside at all, not even to exercise?
Recently, now they allowed it in the morning, early morning hours. You can go for a walk, but I'm in the center of the city.
Yeah.
Uh, of course, you could go for a walk, but it's also a lovely time to do my meditation and all that.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a struggle. Sometimes I think, oh, maybe I should, but then I don't want to skip meditating at that time.
Yeah.
But you can go one day, just go for a stroll.
Yeah. Well, hopefully it won't last much longer, though. I don't think. Hopefully, fingers crossed.
They have to start opening it up, yeah, for
Yeah.
the people's. Yeah.
Like I drove to a forest, not to make you, feel kind of missing in the forest even more, but I went to the forest because I'm practicing rope training exercises.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
You have a little bit of forest in your room also.
It's not real, I'm afraid. It's fake.
Oh, okay. You shouldn't have said that, no? Yeah.
I mean, maybe cut it out.
It's kind of sad, yeah.
So I kind of want to turn the conversation to not to a serious, level, but there are probably lots of people who eventually find their ways, like I did, discovering spirituality, or practicing more and more meditation and yoga, and with the aim of kind of, for me, obviously, with Buddhism was just to kind of disconnect from the life that I had before, because this new way of living made me feel really good. And that's despite certain kind of health conditions that I was diagnosed with. Like your mum, at the beginning of the conversation, your mum, she chose to do it differently.
Yeah.
And they don't kind of prescribe that because they want to give you as many different chemicals as possible. But it really does work. Meditation, positive thinking. But the question that I have for you is, in fact, let me just check for something. Sorry. I want to just make sure that, yeah, okay. So the question I have for you is, have you ever felt a time in your life where you've suffered with your mental health at all? Or have you ever been, kind of not necessarily diagnosed with a mental health condition, but also answer the question this way as well. What kind of things are bad sometimes? What kind of things are good? And obviously, there are good and bad things in all of our lives, but, sometimes our minds may not be as healthy or as strong as they once were, maybe.
Yeah, so definitely nowadays I would say my life is much more easygoing. I think because of all these practices and the knowledge, and because, like you said, it definitely makes a difference. It's like a mental kind of and emotional kind of immunity that you build up. So the things that used to shake me earlier don't really shake me now. Um, and it's like you keep expanding your comfort zone till you come to a point where everything is within your comfort zone.
Yeah.
If I look back, yeah, there have been times, even like still in university, sometimes if you, like, I had a teacher which I was convinced really didn't like me. And then, on top of that, the subject wasn't easy, and we were only two students in his class, one of who was sick most of the time, so that was just me and him. So then I remember sometimes like an oral examination where you really, you get so nervous and you don't know what's going to happen because you have to pass it, but who knows how. But apart from those usual things, I think for me, because like you mentioned, like I've even, worked in these northeastern regions, and then also in places affected by militancy, for example.
Yeah.
Where we go into areas where people said, "Oh, don't go there because people don't come out alive because it's very risky." And even there, I found that I was surprised actually how peaceful and happily I went there. For me personally, I would say like I don't have any, I'm not, at least not diagnosed with any mental health conditions, but then I also feel that nowadays sometimes people are too quick to diagnose.
Yeah.
Like in the early days, we just used to say you have a bad day. Now suddenly you're depressed or you have this condition, that condition, and you have to go on medication. Because I've seen that, mind has certain tendencies. And the beauty is because we teach people about how the mind works and we teach them how to work with it, that for me, even if I have a day where I feel very low or a little down, and then you realize that just small things can throw you off balance or irritate you, or something happens and you feel a little shaky. For me, I don't really identify with that feeling, but it's more like an indication that, oh, it just means that I need to increase my energy level. That means I need to take some time to get back to my center, maybe do some meditation or go for a walk or listen to some music or sleep on time for a change and recharge. Um, so I think that is a shift which for many people would be very useful, because then instead of focusing so much on the problem,
Yeah.
you're focusing on the solution. It's like you spill something on your shirt and you keep looking at that stain and wondering how it got there and why it got there and what you should have done different. And now, but while also the same and even less time and energy, you can take it off, wash it, and then you have a clean shirt. And so that way nowadays, even small children sometimes say, oh, I'm depressed. And 50 years ago, we didn't even know that word. People went on with their life happily.
Yeah.
So I think this is one of the beautiful things of my master's teachings also, in the sense that it's there in the scriptures, but he was the one who shared it with me, gave me that insight that all these negative emotions that we struggle with are just on the circumference. It's like when you see even the physical particle, if you have an atom, the electrons are outside, the core is positive. So the tricky thing is that if you see psychology, psychiatry, that sometimes they have a tendency to say, oh, deep down in you there is some guilt or anger, but it's not deep down. Because when you say that, people think, oh, it's something that it's part of you or you can't get rid of. While we've seen even teaching programs in the prisons for like hardcore criminals, even terrorists, where you see that many of the people there are not there because they're bad people. It's just that either they made some bad choices or they came to a point where they were so full of anger or frustration or stress or fear that they did something terrible. But many of them, they don't feel good about it. And the sad thing is that it comes with a kind of trauma for them, because at that moment they were not fully in control of what they did. And the trauma comes from that they say that even if I promise now to be a better person, what if that happens again? Because that moment I was not in control. So they feel very powerless. And when we teach them some of these techniques and this knowledge and the practical breathing techniques, then when people start experiencing that, oh, this is something that I can use. By doing this, I can change my state of mind, my emotions. Then you see that people can say that, now I can take responsibility. I've had people say that now I can actually say that I will not do this again because now I'm in control.
Yeah.
And we've had people saying that, no, I'm here because of you. Because if you had taught me these things 10 years back, I would not have been here. So I think that is the beauty, that mind is more subtle than the body. So we find it so difficult to handle because we don't learn it in school or at home.
No.
But the beauty is there is something which is even more subtle than the mind. And when you anchor in that, then you find that mind can throw its tantrums and it doesn't even rattle you so much.
Yeah. No, great answer. Thank you so much. I think that the shift in the conversation now is we can, if you want to, by the way, we can talk briefly about your book. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so hopefully, yeah, and then we can end on the kind. Do you have the kindness? The thing that you wrote for kindness. The thing that I use as a quote. Do you have that handy anywhere?
I can just pull it.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'll do is ask you the questions that. So we're kind of closing down a bit now the conversation, I'll ask you about your book, and then
What you would like to ask me?
huh?
I have no preference, so you can ask me whatever you would like to
Yeah,
ask.
and then we'll go on to the kindness, because I'm going to hopefully share and edit this by the end of the week for sure, and the weekend probably. Okay. So you mentioned at the very start of the conversation that your father wrote a book. And
Yeah.
I also know that you've also been asked to write books.
Yes.
So can you tell me or tell us about what what kind of books are they, and why we should go into the bookstore and there's hundreds of books there on the shelf, all those amazing titles, all that hard work. What makes your books or your book different, unique enough for us to, spend our money on? And I'm sure, I don't want to make it sound like I'm, assuming your book's bad. I'm sure it's great, but what makes it unique?
Because I have such nice pictures. No, we'll put a nice picture on the cover. People will feel like, wow, this looks so good. This guy looks very, very peaceful and nice. And now the thing is that actually, like one of the books that I'm writing, it's almost. The first draft is ready now. I'm polishing. It's a whole process. As a writer, when it's written, it's not done.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at that now. So that is actually my autobiography, and I always used to think that one day I'll write a book about some of my experiences, and this even when I was younger, I had this feeling. But then I always thought I'll do this when I'm old.
Yeah.
Because when you're old, that's when you write about your life, right? That's when you look back and you can say, oh, this happened, that happened. But then what happened is, of course, my life has been rich with experiences, with amazing stories, with adventures, with profound personal experiences. And sometimes when I used to talk about some of these things, or people used to ask me, and then I used to share, people started telling me that, these are such beautiful stories, you should write a book, so that more people can enjoy this and they can learn from it or get inspired. So for a few years that was going on, different times, different places, people used to tell me this. And then one day I decided to ask my master, Sri Ravi Shankar, that, people have been telling me this again and again. What do you feel? Because some people told me that, if you do this now instead of after 20, 30 years, at least people can benefit from it now, why postpone it?
Yeah.
So I asked him and he said, yeah, do it. So then, okay, well, so then it took me another 2 years to actually get to it because of, I was very busy with so many things, and some other things happened. So finally, and it's about 1.5 years ago now, I guess almost 2 years ago, I came to a point where I suddenly had a little more space and time. And I thought, let's start. And the idea was there, what it could be like. And I started writing. And then in between my programs, whenever I had a little time, I would sit down and write. And that's how it started. So this is one of the books. And it will be a little bit, not fully, but a little bit like books like Autobiography of a Yogi, because I'm mostly focused on my journey on the spiritual path. So also my experiences with my master, how I met him, my experiences during my years of practice, and my interaction with people along the way. Like I've met such amazing personalities. I've gone through all kinds of adventures. So, and the lessons I've learned from that, how I have grown, what I have realized. So that is one book. And another book was not my idea. It was the publisher who approached me and who said, we have seen some of your work, your programs, your website, all those things, and we feel that you could really add some value by writing a book about how to deal with today's challenges, where it could be anything from a bad breakup to losing your job, or dealing with a pandemic, or we go through so many difficult things.
Yeah.
So they said, could you put together a book with practical tips and tools for people to manage their mind, if they would like to start meditating on their own, like this book would be like a guide for them how to get started, and how to help them deal with different situations. Like we see in Kung Fu Panda, it takes him 1.5 hours to get to inner peace. For most of us, it's not that easy. So they have asked me to write that book, and I have started writing that. And again, it made me realize that, because life goes on, as you know, we pick up so many things along the way. We get used to so many things. We start taking it for granted.
Yeah.
But it is proven to be a nice point of reflection for me, where I realize that many of the things which for me have become so obvious, for many are still out of reach, and some of the things that they've asked me to share, initially I felt that, but this is like basics, who would want to read it? But then I realized that for most people, that is where you need to start. You cannot talk about astrophysics to a person who's never learned mathematics. And the beauty here is that it doesn't have to be something very basic not to be effective. It's like the simple things that can make a huge shift. So so it's beautiful for me that, and I hope that it's going to be useful for people, because I may not be able to reach everybody directly, but then if someone can pick it up and say, okay, this is something that has helped me to get back some of my peace of mind, or that joy in life, or the peace and quiet that I'm looking for, that would be a big blessing.
Yeah, I think that no matter what level a person is on their own kind of spiritual journey, I think reading anything from somebody like you would be inspirational. Would add some value and some meaning to all of their lives, for sure. I would definitely consider buying it, for sure. I would, and because I think there are lots of books that are available on this subject, for example, but some of them aren't so approachable sometimes. I think sometimes they're a bit kind of, not intimidating, but I'm the kind of master, and this is what I think your approach is very friendly, and I look forward to reading it.
Yeah, this is what many people, and that is like a little bit maybe what pulled myself also to look for a master, because there are so many books, and it sounds nice on paper, but somewhere there was a disconnect, with practical life. Either, like you said, that it's too abstract, or it's too theoretical, or it's too many concepts, while actually it's not so complicated. But it's the simple things that can make a shift. And the beauty is, many of these things, it's like somewhere you know it, but the moment you have the clarity, then you can use it.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been a beautiful journey with my master. So I thought, okay, this is something that maybe I can share with people. Some of the things that I have learned and that I'm able to share with people already.
Yeah.
But one more platform.
No, so one thing that you did share with me, which I'm really happy you did, was for Mental Health Awareness Week. And it was a quote that you said that you just sat there and you just, you had one of those moments where you just started writing and that's
it down.
Out, which is, not many people have that ability to do that. And so if it's okay with you to close this amazing interview, thank you so much again. Would you be so kind as to share some of those words that you shared with us?
Okay, so the first part was that never underestimate the power of kindness. It is the power you have to uplift people instantly. Just like a harsh comment, blame, or criticism hurts us and makes us feel uncomfortable, even if we know it is not true or justified, a kind comment or praise we receive from someone always uplifts us, even if we know it is not true. This is why they say praising from the heart is a divine quality. You may do this as an experiment. Start praising someone wholeheartedly, without worrying whether they really deserve those compliments or embody those qualities. You will find both you and the other person being uplifted and feeling nicer, even if you both know that they really aren't as generous or good looking that you are stating them to be. And apply this also to yourself. We need to realize that being able to praise ourselves and feeling good about ourselves and loving ourselves is not having a big ego or being self-centered. It is only when we truly love and appreciate who we are that we will no longer frantically look for the approval and appreciation of others in order to feel better about ourselves. It is in this hidden need for approval by others that the actual ego hides, that subtle part of us that makes us feel separate from others and often alone. The time has come to change the old habit of shying away from praising and complimenting the people around us, while wasting no time in criticizing or shouting at people or ourselves when we are upset or annoyed. Our anger is so cheap, readily available to anyone we meet on the street, and at the same time, we make our smile so expensive. Make your smile cheaper, give it away freely. And as they say, charity starts at home. So start by giving yourself the smile you deserve. You are a wonderful person with so much to give to this world and to share. Don't be stingy, as there are many waiting for you.
Thank you so much, Swami. That's made me feel really emotional. That's so nice. Such amazing words.
Well, you are a wonderful person.
No, I know that you weren't saying that to me, but I don't know why, but I just felt emotional.
I was saying it to you also.
Yeah, it's difficult. I think when I look back at my life, and I had always had these identity crises, like, who am I supposed to be? What am I supposed to do? And it was always the opposite of what everybody else wanted me to do or to be. And, part of me kind of equates that to my own kind of childhood, the way that was. But I think actually I always knew who I was and what I wanted to be, but I was always stopped from doing that. And so I had kind of also carried other people's, burdens of guilt, of whatever. But actually I knew all that time. I've always been that person, but it's just taken me about 30 years to get to that place.
And that makes you very fortunate, because there are many that struggle all their life and sometimes till the end don't get to that point where they're able to really look at themselves and find themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Swami, for your time. You're amazing, and I really look forward to editing this together.